All right, time to bring in our political panel. New South Wales Liberal Senator Holly Hughes is in the studio and former Labor MP Michael Danby from Canberra. Welcome to you both.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Now, Holly, still on this Royal Commission while we're just talking to Nick Caldos there. I know the wheels of the bureaucracy turn slowly, but in this case, after now 57 reports, there is no excuse.
No, not at all. And action needs to happen and happen quickly. I'm catching up with someone tonight who got off a plane after serving in a war, had been away for an extended period of time and got off the plane in an international airport with no one there to greet him, no one there to thank him for his service. And I think we do this particularly badly with our servicemen and women, that when they do come back from particularly serving in theatres, that we're not there to welcome them, we're not there to thank them for their service, and then we're not there to support them in the long term. So this isn't a new problem. This isn't something people haven't been talking about for quite a while, and it is time that everybody steps up and does better at looking after our veterans, because after all, they're the ones looking after us. OK, I'm going to ask you a question, Michael, about an article written in the Weekend Australian by Greg Sheridan, where he claims that Liberals have lost the plot amid a global crisis of the right. He says it's the greatest long-term threat to the Libs and Nats. The Coalition's lack of conviction or direction about any basic issues or values at state as well as federal level indicates a profound crisis. Are you seeing the same thing?
It's a worldwide phenomenon. In the UK, the Tories have moved to the left. At a state level, it's particularly clear in New South Wales and Victoria that the Liberals are trying to adopt a more what they call progressive environment policy in order to ensure themselves against a repeat of the Teals phenomena in the federal elections. But I'm not sure whether it ensures or confuses. That's the key point. And what do we do, all of us, both sides of politics, when electricity prices go up 100%, 200%, including for manufacturing, as we adopt more expensive renewables? Now, no one's against renewables, no one's against doing what we can about global warming, but do we have to move faster than China? And isn't Elon Musk right that, like in Europe and in America, we need to take this a bit more slowly to get a bit of balance? I think simply arguing that would be a better bet for the Liberals in adopting the Matthew Guy, Matt Keane. We must be more green than the Labor Party or the Greens.
I couldn't agree more. Holly?
Neither can I, for that matter.
Has Greg Sheridan got a little bit carried away with that post-loss, dire straits kind of feel when you do suffer a loss? Because after all, Labor's primary vote was less than the Liberal Party, than the Coalition's primary vote. Is he getting a little bit carried away?
Look, I read it and I thought there were some points there that were very well made. I thought there were some others that were probably a little bit wide of the mark. But there has been an issue with parties of the centre-right trying to, for better of a lack of term now, out-teal the teals. And that's just not going to work. And I think, to Michael's point, when people can't afford their electricity bills, when people can't put petrol in their car, when people can't afford groceries, these issues that they had prior to the last election aren't going to exist in the same way. But again, to Matthew Guy's saying he's going to legislate 50%, well, that's moot point now, because the feds will overrule that with what they're going to do at 43%. And we know what Matt Keane's trying to do in New South Wales, and that's left the Greens. I mean, it's just extraordinary what's happening there. Michael's completely right. This transition needs to happen, but it needs to happen smartly. It needs to happen at a pace that we can handle, and a pace that we don't economically disadvantage ourselves.
Correct.
And, I mean, look at what's happening in China and the Taiwan Strait and all these. Yeah. And we really want to put ourselves in a position where we might not be able to turn the lights on because we're not close to that 2030 target. It's insane.
We don't need, and we should not be more fragile when it comes to energy and power.
Absolutely not.
Very, very important to state. Now, the federal government is seeking to increase the skilled migration intake to address critical labour shortages. Between 180,000 and 200,000 skilled migrants could be allowed into Australia every year. The move would see Australia acknowledge more qualifications and trades from other countries. Michael, we desperately need workers, but I always ask when I see big numbers like that, has someone done the due diligence that tells us that we have the infrastructure for 200,000 extra people every year?
Well, clearly we don't, if you look at the pre COVID period, but they reckon we've had a break since then, and infrastructure in Victoria certainly has caught up quite a bit. I think Albo and Chalmers are holding this summit in order to sort of provide a justification for increase in immigration. And one thing I would point out to you is that Philip Ruddock was the one who did the former Liberal Conservative immigration minister did the big increase in immigration way back when to around that 200,000 level. Australia can sustain it. And one thing, Chris, that I think, I'm sorry to put my national security hat on here, but I would like Australia to be, in a few decades' time, a country the size of Poland or Italy, 40 million. It'd be much easier to handle our aggressive Chinese neighbour.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Just on migrant intake, it seems like it's straight out of Treasury. Treasury always thinks that if you generate as many migrants to live in this country as possible, you generate revenue and you generate really good accounts.
Yeah, look, and to your point with regards to do we have the infrastructure, it's one thing if they all were to come to Sydney. No, we don't. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the infrastructure for them to all go to the cities. There's lots of demand out in rural and regional areas for these workers. And if you look at things like GPs as well, we need to make sure that they are servicing rural and regional areas of the country. So I have no problem with the number. I think we need more, and particularly post-COVID in our recovery, where we lost all those backpackers, we lost all those travellers that used to do so much of the work that Australians don't want to do. We definitely need them, but we need to make sure that we're targeting them into the right industries, into the right regions.
Not great reading this morning for Dan Andrews, Michael Danby. Victoria goes to the polls in November. We read today that according to private party polling, Labor Premier Dan Andrews will shed votes and may have to form a minority government. The pandemic hasn't been kind to those who held tough during the pandemic, has it? Apart from Mark McGowan from WA, of course.
Yes, well, we'll see. Andrews is a very crafty customer, and I have to tell you the Lib opposition down here is regarded widely by people in the media as more hopeless than the New South Wales government is. So, but it's the interesting wedge. This is where the future of politics may be. It's in working class and northern and western suburbs of Melbourne that are traditional Labor seats that Labor is vulnerable. I suspect that they will still do well and win, but that's where they'll lose seats. I think the Libs are so concerned about their inner city Teal seats that they should be more on the offensive in trying to win people in the seats that are really pissed off. Yeah. If I can use that expression on TV.
You just have, doesn't matter, Michael, you just have...
Wouldn't agree with you, Michael, there.
with the COVID effects, you know, so a lot of tradies and that kind of stuff in the north and west were not happy.
Yeah. Michael Danby, thank you very much for your time. Holly Hughes, great to have you in.
Thanks, Smithy.
Good
See you,
on
Michael.
You. Have a great